I've long been a follower of Jesse Ventura. He is no-nonsense, street-smart, and tells it like it is, and to hell with the media bullshit and disgusting political correctness. This is what you'll not see the Mockingbird mainstream media even mention, much less discuss in depth. Jeffrey Epstein is caught in a classic catch-22 situation. There are too many powerful people that stand to be his cellmates if the case proceeds to trial. I don't believe his testimony against any of his clients is necessary because enough has been seized from his mansion to expose them and make plea bargains moot. By whacking Epstein, his clients could only hope to suppress the evidence that is normally disclosed as discovery. No trial, because the defendant was killed in the showers, means no discovery information. Another advantage would be that if a hit succeeded, a message to all other potential witnesses, "We can get to you anywhere," would be received loud and clear. If he goes to trial, he will most certainly lose. There's just too much evidence and too much alternative media scrutiny for him to repeat his sweetheart deal. If he cops a plea and squeals on his clients, he will be a snitch and a chomo. If he's not murdered within a week, it would indeed be miraculous. Jeffrey Epstein's fate is sealed. Not only my opinion, so says Jesse Ventura on RT. So said I in my prior video titled The Shankistan Redemption on July 17th, 2019. The link is in the description section.
Dead man! Dead man walking! Dead man walking! Dead man walking here! Dead man! We got a dead man walking here! Dead man walking! We got a dead man walking here!
I'm Jesse Ventura. Stay vigilant and question more. Welcome to my world. Come along for the ride. The world according to Jesse. Today we talk about Jeffrey Epstein and the allegations that the politically connected millionaire was an intelligence asset. Interesting. The world according to Jesse.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show. I'm Brigida Santos, again in studio with Jesse Ventura.
Great to be here, Brigida. Face to face. It's the way I like doing shows.
This is
I don't have to see you
awesome.
through a camera.
Yeah, or hear you just through an earpiece.
There we go.
All right, today we're talking about the Jeffrey Epstein case. This is absolutely stunning. Washington, D.C. and the global elite are now bracing for impact as the U.S. Court of Appeals prepares to release thousands of documents related to that case against the convicted sex offender and alleged serial pedophile. Again, his name is Jeffrey Epstein. The documents are expected to reveal the names of Epstein's high-powered associates, including prominent American politicians, powerful business executives, foreign presidents, a well-known prime minister, and other world leaders, and that's according to the court. Before we dive in, Jesse, what is your reaction to the possibility of a bunch of very prominent leaders' names coming out in this case?
Well, I'll tell you, Brigida, they covered this case up the first time for a reason. You know, he was, and we'll get to that, but he got his sweet deal for a reason. And I don't think it was just because Jeffrey Epstein was a nice, smiling boy that they did that and did that for him. Obviously, there are powerful people at the first trial that, when he got his plea deal, that didn't want this to see the light of day.
No, of course not.
And now it's seeing the light of day. And Brigida, this story could be the blockbuster damn near of the year.
I know. With
the power and the involvement of all the names you're hearing bandied around. To put it bluntly, it's rather scary.
Yeah, it's very, very shocking. It goes all the way up to the top, allegedly. So
that's right. Let's
dive into this, all right? So let's go back to where this story really began. Back in 2007, Jeffrey Epstein, a politically connected millionaire, was accused of molesting dozens of female children and running a cult-like sex trafficking ring at his houses in 3 American states and the Caribbean. Police interviews in a 53-page indictment reveal that Epstein often used his female child victims to bring other underage girls to his mansions, where he then coerced them into performing sexual acts. Some female children were even reportedly trafficked overseas. This scheme went back as far as 2001 and is believed to involve at least 103 underage girls. Despite the damning evidence against him, Epstein got off easy in that sweetheart deal you were just talking about. The U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Florida at the time, Jim Acosta, secretly negotiated that sweetheart plea deal that allowed Epstein to plead guilty in state court to 2 felony prostitution charges in exchange for a light sentence. Epstein served only 13 months in county jail, where he was granted work release privileges 6 days per week, allowing him to leave for up to 12 hours at a time, so pretty much the whole time that he was supposed to be in jail. He and his accomplices were also granted immunity from all federal criminal charges, and the FBI investigation into whether there were more victims or powerful people involved, and it seems like there were, it was halted. Epstein's victims and their families, on the other hand, were denied justice and even prevented from seeing that sweetheart plea agreement until it was presented in court. A lawyer representing many of Epstein's victims also claims that Epstein continued to prey on female children while he was serving time. And the work release records obtained through the Freedom of Information Act reveal that that might be a possibility because Epstein often signed himself in and out of jail. There are documents to prove it. That shows that he was not closely monitored. This is a story that's far too common. There are 2 justice systems, one for the rich and powerful and one for everybody else. Jesse.
Yeah, exactly, Brigitte. You hit the nail right on the head there. People need to understand clearly in the United States of America, our justice system is not justice for all. There's rich people justice and there's regular people justice. And the court should be embarrassed that that exists, but it does. After listening to this story, it is very clear that powerful forces, in my opinion, came into this case to hush it up. Because they didn't want this to go to any type of trial. They wanted it, you could clearly see, exposed and gotten rid of as quickly as possible, move on, and all of this. And fortunately, it hasn't. Now it's risen again, and there'll be a second time around with this, which should not have happened the first time. And Brigitte, the big thing on this is, who else was involved?
Well, we're probably going to be finding out. Yeah.
Was in this whole thing? I mean, this is such sordid crap. Pedophilia. It doesn't get any lower than this, people. I don't think there are crimes on this planet that I have more disdain for. I'll tell you what, I sat on the Board of Pardons when I was governor of Minnesota. And I remember we had a pedophile come, wanted his record expunged, cleaned off. And his victim came that day, a young girl who had grown up now. I called her up to me and I whispered to her, I said, you don't ever have to come back to one of these again. Because I said, as long as I'm the governor and I'm sitting up here, a pedophile will never get their record expunged, cleared off. Because I believe very strongly pedophilia doesn't end with them saying it did. It is a sickness.
Right. And I'm glad that you told her that she wouldn't have to come back again.
I said, you don't have to come back as long as I'm here.
Yeah.
You do not have to come back and make a plea, because it required the 3 of us had to be in unison, the Attorney General, Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, and the governor. If one of us went the other way, don't happen. Has to be unanimous.
Right.
At least in Minnesota.
Well, there's a little bit of good news, and that's that the Justice Department's Office of Professional Responsibility is now investigating allegations that federal government lawyers, including Jim Acosta, committed misconduct in the handling of Epstein's case in 2007. I want to remind the viewers that Jim Acosta has served since 2017 as President Trump's labor secretary, overseeing American labor laws, including human trafficking. Now, he's just resigned, but he does claim that the non-prosecution deal that he cut with Epstein's attorney took place because he was told that Epstein belonged to intelligence and to leave it alone. That's crazy. And we don't know if those allegations are true, but if they are,
If that is true, If that is true, and he got told by our government to drop it and leave it alone, then this is an investigation that has to go a lot farther than Jeffrey Epstein.
Right.
I think Acosta needs to be investigated now. If what is said there is true, that he was told to back off, told by who?
Yeah, and who is he supposed to be an alleged intelligence
who would
asset
tell him to
for?
back off from a pedophile case?
Right.
And why? Because obviously powerful people didn't want any type of involvement in this type of case. That's the only thing I read from it. Now, I'm only speculating, but Jesse is a little street smart.
Well, Epstein is now back behind bars. He was arrested this month in New York and hit with new criminal charges for allegedly sex trafficking dozens of children in New York and Florida between 2002 and 2005. Under double jeopardy laws, prosecutors are prohibited from targeting a suspect with the same charges on the same facts in a second case. But this time, prosecutors plan to focus on additional crimes by Epstein that were not included in the previous case against him, and crimes that he committed allegedly after those that led to his prior arrest. So they are playing the game here to catch him. Epstein has been denied bail this time around as well, and the courts are under a lot of pressure to prosecute him. But again, do you think this is going to actually happen?
Well, I think that the public scrutiny now, Brigida, is so powerful.
Yes.
I mean, when he originally did it in Florida, it was much easier at that point to sweep it under the rug because it was localized pretty well. You could localize it. But now when you've got the former Secretary of Labor to the President of the United States involved in something that I feel is as corrupt as could ever be in our judicial legal system, and he did this as a U.S. attorney, and if he did do it under orders from someone, this is, I'll tell you what, I think this is worse than any Russian interference in our election.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And this case keeps getting more and more bizarre. Now, Epstein has long been touted as a billionaire and hedge fund manager for 10-figure investors, but there's very little proof that he was either. Documents have already debunked his billionaire financial status, although he's still reportedly wealthy, $500 million. And the hedge fund he claims to have run only has one known client. Now, this has led many people to speculate that the fund might have been a front for something else. But what? During a raid on Epstein's New York residence, police discovered an expired Austrian passport from the 1980s with Epstein's alias, listing his residence as Saudi Arabia. Epstein's lawyers claim that he acquired the passport decades ago as protection to hide his Jewishness while traveling in the Middle East. New York Magazine, which has done a great job covering this, reports that journalist and friend of Epstein's, Jesse Kornbluth, said Epstein worked for governments in the mid-1980s to recover money looted by African dictators and occasionally subcontracted to those same autocrats to help them hide their stolen money. So what do you think? Was he just a really rich guy who's shady, who has all these connections and is able to do things? Or do you think this is a bigger government conspiracy?
I don't know. Obviously, he seems to be a high-level crook.
Yes.
In many ways, wheeling and dealing with large amounts of money in probably things that are a bit underhanded, maybe. Like a real possible white-collar criminal, I guess you would call him out there, not a blue-collar one, but a white-collar one. And, again, I think the best thing that can possibly be done right now, Brigida, is to go back to Watergate and go back to the bowels of that parking ramp when Woodward was told by Deep Throat, follow the money. I think that's your answer here, too.
I think so.
Follow the money, because the money will take you to the answer. And I got to tell you, Brigida, 90% of all government things like that follow the money.
Right. The contents of Epstein's Black Book were recently revealed. Now, Epstein's contacts include accused pedophile Woody Allen, convicted sexual assaulter Bill Cosby, and a relative of Claire Bronfman who recently pleaded guilty in the NXIVM cult sex trafficking case. So some similar-minded people here. Now, other contacts include people like Steve Bannon, Elizabeth Hurley, Michael Bloomberg, Naomi Campbell, the list goes on. Now, we do not know what kind of relationship those people had with Epstein, and I have to make it clear that just because they're in his black book, it does not mean that they were aware or complicit in his activities. But it does reveal that he was incredibly powerful and very well connected, which made it really easy for him to get away with the alleged crimes. These people are legitimizing him, they're giving him cover. Do you think any of these contacts will now ever testify against him, if any of them know anything?
Wow, who knows? You know, it's going to be very interesting to see what comes through the wash, what kind of trial takes place on this. But I'll tell you what, I'll be watching it close, because this is intriguing as hell.
Mm-hmm. All right, it's time for a break. When we return, Jesse sits down with RT host of The News with Rick Sanchez to talk more about the case against Jeffrey Epstein. We'll be right back.
I'm now joined in studio by RT anchor Rick Sanchez for more on the Epstein case. Rick, you cover this story on your show. Compare Epstein's previous trial to what's going on now. We know his powerful connections saved him from facing real consequences before. What's the difference this time around?
Well, let's stay with the Florida case first for just a little bit.
Okay.
I think this is really important. Can I just be real serious about this for a minute,
Sure.
as not just a citizen and as a journalist, but as a father? I'm going to tell you the story of what happened in Florida from the perspective that you often don't hear in the media. You're a father and you have a 14-year-old daughter. You knock on the door of a police chief and you say, I think a man has raped my daughter, right? You are going to your government authority figure and telling them that you think something heinous has happened to your daughter. They do an investigation, they come back. And you know what they say to you? You know what they said to those 36 fathers in Florida whose minor daughters were apparently raped by this man? What they told them was that they've struck a deal with Epstein in such a way so that they've determined that they're going to give the guy a chance to plead to solicitation, which means your daughter is a whore. That's what that means.
Yeah.
Your daughter's a whore. Your daughter is a prostitute. That's what they are saying.
Absolutely, because
to those fathers.
Because solicitation means he solicited.
With a prostitute.
Exactly.
How can a 14-year-old girl be a prostitute? But that is what the case was in Florida. They basically told those fathers and those mothers that their daughter is a prostitute. I think that's sick. I think it's disgusting. I think it's vile. And by the letter of the law, they were supposed to at least check with them first and said, look, we're going to do a plea deal with this guy. We just want to make sure you guys understand. Maybe there was a real reason to do it. Who knows? But the fact of the matter is they did that. And just from a human standpoint, me as a father of a 17-year-old daughter,
Yep.
that just teased me off to no end, man.
Okay. Now, Epstein called his jet the Lolita Express. He often flew his friends to his private island, which locals referred to as Pedophile Island, Orgy Island, Island of Sin. It was notoriously known. How the hell did Epstein get away with this so long? If everybody knew about this place and he's got it labeled on his damn airplane.
There's something we're going with tonight on our show. We're essentially going with a brand new development in this story that they just went and tracked. In fact, some of my sources and friends, fellow colleagues, I should say, at the Miami Herald, which is the paper who's been doing the best work on this story, by the way.
Right.
Kudos to journalist Julie Brown, who's done this investigation when nobody else cared about it. What we're going to report tonight is that Epstein was handing out money like candy to anybody who he could possibly influence. So when if the notion that you raise is, Governor, why didn't these people know? Come on, when you're riding on a plane that's the Lolita Express, when you go to a party and you see nothing but little girls all over the place or young ladies all over the place, when you open the door to a cracked door in a bedroom and you see something nefarious going on, like illicit sex, why wouldn't you do something about it? And the answer seems to be money, and lots of money. This guy was dealing in two areas, money and influence. Who exactly he was doing it for and why he was doing it that way, we don't know at this point. But as sure as you and I are sitting here right now, there was money being exchanged, and he at some point may have had something on these guys. And there's even a story that we've been looking into, and we're not the only ones, that the Mossad, or the intelligence in Israel, working through Les Wexner, who is the guy who apparently he was working for, he was the beneficiary of, super billionaire dude who started Victoria's Secret, became a multi-billionaire. Wexner has ties to the Israeli government. Through the Israeli government, there's questions about whether or not they were trying to get juice on American politicians so that they would pressure them, which, by the way, is nothing that all governments don't do.
Yeah. Now, this whole case looks bad for a lot of people. We've known about Clinton and Trump's ties to Epstein for a long time now. No one has ever investigated the nature of these relationships. Do you think anyone will look into them now?
I think now these guys, yeah, and this goes to the first question you asked me, because we talked about the Florida case, which apparently was plead. Now we get into the New York case, which obviously is not going to be plead. There's not going to be a deal here. He's going to stay in prison for quite some time. And his friends are sweating, because this all comes down to something which is very simple, which again goes back to human nature. If I said to you, Rick Sanchez or Governor, you're either going to spend the rest of your life in prison, or you're going to be able to give us some information where we're going to let you out a little sooner, what decision do you make? Are you willing to give up any one of the names that you and we're just mentioning on the show? Is it Donald Trump? Is it Bill Clinton? I don't know.
Yep. Now, the big question to me, what do you make of the claims by Acosta that Epstein was an intelligence agent? And is there evidence as to which government he may have worked for? Have you delved into that at all?
Of course I have.
Because Acosta made the claim that he was told to back off by powerful people in intelligence.
You know, you and I both love a good conspiracy, but we also have to be mindful of the reason that people might say the things they do. Let's remember that to believe Acosta is to understand that this guy is trying to save his ass, right? He needs a reason to do something that's totally vile and, if nothing else, stupid. Who the hell lets a man walk who's accused by 36 young ladies of rape? He did. He did that. So the one reason I want to not give too much credence to that is because he might be using that as an escape for why he did what he did in Florida, when in actuality there may have been other pressures applied.
But if he got pressed, wouldn't he have to say who told him and lead us up the ladder a little bit? I mean, if this is legit and he's looking to save his own skin.
This is what makes this story fascinating.
Is he going to reveal, if it's true, this upper echelon person, if the person did tell him to back off?
Now let's move off from journalistic questioning and the type of stuff you and I normally do, and just talk about what the word is on the street.
All right.
All right. The word on the street is Epstein is not going to survive prison. That's
that he's going to get killed?
What do we used to call it? What did our parents call it? Rubbed out or something like that? Yeah. That he just, well, I mean, of course.
Or the old days, bumped off.
Bumped off?
Bumped off.
And obviously, there's some just, fun conjecture you and I are doing here. But this guy knows a lot, Governor. This guy knows a lot and can hurt a whole lot of people. Do people like that normally survive?
But isn't it apparent then that he has to be kept in solitary confinement then when he does go to prison if there's this fear?
You know how many people in prison are end up meeting their demise, whether it's Jeffrey Dahmer or somebody else?
I haven't kept track, but I know I've heard.
Well,
I don't
listen,
have a statistical number.
I'm just saying there's a whole lot of people out there.
I just know that pedophiles are not looked upon highly in prison.
Exactly. And the nature of something like this happen would be easily explainable, let's just say. And this goes beyond journalistic quandary.
So they may actually put him in a prison to get him killed. So that he can't talk about nothing or expose nothing, because that would be an easy way out, wouldn't it? Oh, unfortunately, this murderer over here was angry at a pedophile, and it happens all the time in prison.
Look, we're working on a story today as well that has ties between Jeffrey Epstein and Deutsche Bank. Deutsche Bank is one of the biggest banks in the history of the world. I know we broke the story that they're collapsing, but there's the fact that he's tied to some of the biggest tycoons in the world, some of the biggest politicians in the world, prime ministers, royalty, 2 presidents. I mean, there are a lot of people with a lot to lose whose reputations are tied to this man. And they have been protecting him.
As powerful as these people are, how can they allow Epstein to live?
Well, here's the question.
That's a question that I raise. How can they allow this guy? He's got to be silenced. If indeed he has the goods on some of the people and entities that you're talking about, Rick,
right,
then isn't someone going to silence him before, for lack of a better term, before everything falls over the cliff?
No, and that's why I think from time to time...
Or the you-know-what hits the fan?
You have to ask these questions because it's not what I just said. Most of what I just said about princes and prime ministers and presidents and tycoons and lobbyists, that's all public record, man. That's all out there. So the fact of the matter is there's a lot of people who have a lot to lose if this guy starts talking. What happens to keep him from talking? And if they say to him, you can either talk or you're going to spend the rest of your life in solitary, what does he do? Put yourself in his shoes. I don't know.
It's going to be interesting. It's going to be real interesting. I'll tell you, this Epstein story to me is the best soap opera going. I mean, this thing, Young and the Restless, better pay attention. Because, you know, I've been a fan of the soaps because I worked at night all the time and it was the only TV I saw. But this stuff is just intriguing on Epstein because where is it going to lead to next? Rick, speculate for me.
Well,
where do you think it's going to lead, and what do you think the end will be?
I think the prosecutors in New York are going to follow
and we're
this
getting short on time.
I think the prosecutors in New York are going to follow this thing through to the end. I think that they're going to dig and dig, and I think eventually Epstein is going to have some kind of indictment that's fulfilled. I think he will be prosecuted. The question is, what will he say, and when will he say it?
And who's he going to take down with him?
Exactly. That's the question. And I think
you think it'll happen?
I do think it'll happen.
He'll take people down.
I think he'll have to take people down because there's too many people who are associated with this point. Right. And I think a lot of them are very nervous right now.
Okay. Rick, we're out of time. I want to thank you for coming in. Keep up the great work. Keep me up on this.
Thank you, my friend.
No, this is, like I said, this is titillating stuff. You know, this is stuff, this is like what you read in a good mystery novel. You know, what's going on here.
Sometimes stories just rip off the pages.
Sometimes the truth is better than what anyone can make up.
Mm-hmm. You're absolutely right. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Thank you for watching, everyone. Send us your comments on Facebook and Twitter for a chance to be featured in next week's episode when we cover more stories ignored by the corporate media.
And remember, people, I can't pound it home enough. When the government lies, the truth becomes a traitor. Stay vigilant. We need you.
Please subscribe to our backup channels, Whirlwind Revolt, Inglorious Patriots, and Net for Truth USA 2 Patriot channel. You can also find us at Net for Truth USA on BitChute. We fly so close to the target, we're on our 4th fighter jet. We will be relentless truth seekers until the enemies of freedom are defeated. You can support this channel by using the links in the description, but for a $100 donation, I will personally send you a autographed hardcover special edition copy of Land of Childhood's Fears. Also, visit my bookstore at lulu.com/net4truth USA. If you are viewing this video on BitChute, you can use the links in the description to support us, or simply click the green $ dot on our video to support this channel. Thank you. Links are in the description section.